Hello everyone. Today let's talk about Thomas Kitts' most famous play, The Spanish Tragedy. The Spanish Tragedy, written around 1587 or 1592. Written around 1587-1592, The Spanish Tragedy is one of the most important Elizabethan revenge tragedies. Thomas Kitts popularized the revenge tragedy genre, influencing later playwrights, including William Shakespeare's work Hamlet. The play, The Spanish Tragedy, is filled with murder, gore, madness, and revenge, making it a blueprint for future revenge dramas. Now let's go to the plot summary of the Spanish Tragedy. First of all, the ghost and the revenge plot. The ghost of Don Antria, a Spanish nobleman killed in battle, appears in the first scene. He is accompanied by Revenge, a personification of vengeance who promises justice for his death. In the second part, we can see the main characters and their conflict. Horatio, son of the protagonist Hieronimo, is murdered by Lorenzo and Baltasar. Baltasar is the Prince of Portugal. Belle Imperia, that is Antria's former lover, falls in love with Horatio, anchoring Lorenzo and Baltasar. They murder Horatio and hang his body in a garden, leaving his father Hieronimo devastated. In the third part of the play, we can see Hieronimo's grief and a quest for justice. Hieronimo, a knight marshal of Spain, seeks justice but finds the legal system corrupt and ineffective. He slowly descends into madness due to his grief and frustration. He decides that only personal revenge can bring true justice. In the fourth act, we can see the play within a play. Hieronimo stages a play where the murderers unknowingly take part. During the performance, he kills Lorenzo and Baltasar in real life, making them suffer as they made Horatio suffer. After taking revenge, Hieronimo kills himself. In the fifth act, we can see the supernatural ending. The ghost of Antria is pleased, and a revenge takes all the villains to hell. The play ends with a dark and pessimistic view of justice and fate. Now let's have a look at the main themes shared in the Spanish Tragedy. First of all, we have revenge and justice, madness and grief, corruption of power, the role of faith and supernatural elements. First one, revenge and justice. The play questions whether revenge is ever truly justified. The legal system fails Hieronimo, pushing him to take matters into his own hands. The second theme we can see is madness and grief. Hieronimo's descent into madness is central to the plot. His grief drives him to the edge of insanity, mirroring Hamlet's struggles as we can see in his Shakespeare's play. The third theme is corruption of power. The powerful figures, namely Lorenzo and Baltasar, manipulates the system for their own gain. Justice is only achieved through violence, highlighting the failure of institutions. Then the fourth important theme we can see is the role of fate and supernatural elements. The ghost of Antria, another character of revenge, framed the play, suggesting fate controls human actions. This adds a sense of inevitability, that is, justice will come, but at the terrible cost. Now let's have a look at the literary devices and styles used by Thomas Care in the play. First of all, we have a dramatic irony. That is, the audience knows more than the characters, increasing tension. Then we have a play within a play. This technique is later used by Shakespeare in a Hamlet. Then we have a soliloquies and monologues. Hieronymus' speeches showcase his inner turmoil, much like Hamlet's famous soliloquies. Then we have the use of symbolism. That is, the hanging of Horatio represents injustice and cruelty. Then we can see metaphor. That is, the play in the final scene is a metaphor for revenge coming full circle. Now let's analyze the influence Thomas Kit's play made on later drama. The Spanish tragedy inspired Shakespeare's work Hamlet, which also features a revenge-seeking protagonist who feigns or experiences madness. A ghost guiding the plot. Then a play within a play used to expose guilt. The play established key revenge tragedy conventions, including a tragic hero consumed by vengeance, delays and a hesitation in taking revenge, then brutal violent deaths at the climax. So once more, remember the characters. First of all, we have the heroine, Belle Imperia, who had a former lover named Dun Antria. Dun Antria is already dead. Then Belle Imperia falls in love with Horatio. Horatio is the son of the character Hieronymo, who is a Knight Marshal of Spain. Then we have the villain characters like Lorenzo and Balthazar. Balthazar is the Prince of Portugal. And these people kill our main character, Horatio. Then Hieronymo wants to take revenge on these characters. Now it's time for us to explain the main chords from the play. First of all, the most important line, that is Vindicta Mihi. It occurs in Act 3, Scene 13. So this is a Latin phrase for vengeance is mine. This biblical allusion signals Hieronymo's struggle between divine justice and a personal revenge. Initially, Hieronymo defers to God's judgment, reflecting his internal moral conflict. However, as the play progresses, he abandons his patience and takes vengeance into his own hands. The chord marks a critical turning point in Hieronymo's descent. The next chord, where words prevail not, violence prevails. And it happens in Act 3, Scene 13. Hieronymo justifies his turn from legal appeals to revenge, highlighting the futility of relying on corrupt justice systems. This quote underscores the theme of institutional failure, the idea that language fails where action succeeds runs throughout the play. It marks the erosion of Hieronymus' rationality. Next quote. For blood with blood shall, while I sit as judge, be satisfied. This happens in Act 4, Scene 1. Hieronymus assumes the role of judge and executioner, asserting a parallel justice system. This quote reveals his final embrace of vengeance over legal recourse. The poetic symmetry of blood with blood reflects the tragic cycle of violence. It challenges the audience to question whether justice is truly served. Now the next line. Why then I will fit you, say no more. This occurs in Act 3, Scene 2, spoken by Hieronymus after being dismissed by the king. This line signals his resolution to act outside the law. It reflects frustration, anger, and a decisive shift in character. The casual, almost offhand tone marks the chilling transition from grief to vengeance. It underlines his alienation from courtly power. The next quote. Oh eyes, no eyes, but fountains fraught with tears. It occurs in Act 3, Scene 2. Hieronymus mounts his son Horatio in a passage thick with grief and a metaphor. The transformation of eyes into fountains emphasizes the overwhelming power of sorrow. It also foreshadows the madness that consumes him. This emotional moment humanizes Hieronymus, inviting audience empathy before his descent. The next quote. Now shalt thou see the death of Baldio slain. It occurs in Act 4, Scene 4. This line is spoken during the climatic play within the play, when revenge is enacted on stage as real murder. The blurring of performance and reality reflects the duplicity of courtly appearances. It also emphasizes the theatricality of vengeance. Thomas Kitts uses meta-theatre to comment on spectacle and justice. Now the next quote. What outcry calls me from my naked bed? It occurs in Act 2, Scene 5. Balthasar is awakened by commotion, reflecting how violence disrupts both personal peace and public order. The line evokes vulnerability and the suddenness of political chaos. It also foreshadows the unrest that will unfold. The domestic imagery contrasts with the brutal world of revenge and power. Now the next quote. The heavens are just, murder cannot be hid. This occurs in Act 3, Scene 1. This quote reflects our belief in divine justice, which permeates the early parts of the play. Ironically, it is disproven by action, where murder is hidden and justice delayed. It serves as a bitter commentary on the disconnect between moral ideals and political realities. The line is thus both hopeful and tragically ironic. Now the next quote. He will never be ruled by me. This line occurs in Act 2, Scene 2. Lorenzo here expresses his frustration with Horatio, revealing the breakdown of political alliances and personal enmities. This sets up Horatio's murder as a consequence of unchecked power. The line shows the limits of persuasion in a court driven by ambition. It also points to the generational tensions in the play. The next line. Hieronimo, beware, thou art an old man, and a justice is denied thee. This quote occurs in Act 3, Scene 13. This internal voice, or perhaps we can say a moment of lucidity, serves as both a warning and a prophecy. This line underscores Hieronimo's social powerlessness and the limits of institutional justice. The statement prepares the audience for his turn to revenge. Age becomes symbolic of impotence in a corrupt system. The next line. To know the cause why I am thus and thus. This line occurs in Act 3, Scene 2, spoken by Hieronimo in his madness. This line is haunting in its repetition and rhythm. It reflects a psychological fragmentation and a desire for clarity amidst confusion. The poetic echo suggests the mind unraveling. It becomes emblematic of the play's obsession with the causes, effects, and justice. The next line. Let not thy heavy thoughts thy heart oppress. This line occurs in Act 1, Scene 5. Belle Imperia advises herself, trying to manage her grief after Andrea's death. The quote shows the tension between private emotion and a public restraint. It also introduces the play's psychological complexity, that is, grief, guilt, and a gentle silencing. This early self-consolation contrasts with the violent agency she later takes. The next quote. To know the author were some ease of grief. This line occurs in Act 3, Scene 2. Hieronimo expresses the human need to find meaning through justice. Knowing who killed Horatio is framed as necessary for processing sorrow. The line suggests that narrative control, naming the culprit, is crucial to healing. This becomes the driving force behind his actions. The next line. Each man's death is but a step to mine. This line occurs in Act 4, Scene 4. As Hieronimo executes his revenge, this quote encapsulates the fatalism and inevitability of his path. His murders are not just a vengeance, but steps toward his own demise. The line reveals a nihilistic logic, that is, he is both a judge and a self-destroyer. It reflects the tragic self-awareness in a Thomas Kit's protagonist. The next line. Thus must we toil in our men's extremes. This line occurs in Act 1, Scene 1, spoken by the ghost of Andrea. This line opens the play with a reflection on suffering, the consequences of others' actions. It sets the metaphysical tone for the entire tragedy. The ghostly perspective introduces fate and injustice as central themes. Andrea's commentary becomes a lens for reading all ensuing action.